Hi everybody. So thank you for coming today, and we're really pleased to be able to have this opportunity to talk to you a bit more about the BA Photography programme at Middlesex University. My name's Anne, and I'm joined here by my colleagues Alison and Phil. So we'll each be talking to you about different aspects of the course, and then at the end there'll be a chance to ask some questions as well. So so we're very happy to have you join us, and I'm going to let Phil start by talking a little bit, giving us an overview of the photography programme.
Yes, so this is our first slide. So we wanted to start with what makes studying BA photography at Middlesex, such a distinctive experience. And this slideshow sort of gives an overview of lots of different elements of the first year and how we work at Middlesex University and what you could expect to encounter on studying BA photography with us. And this first slide gives an outline of some of the main benefits of studying in London, because that is such a unique and particular experience and really important for Middlesex as a university and particularly for studying photography. Of course, there's certain aspects that London presents which you just can't have or achieve elsewhere, and one of the first things that we would highlight is the world-class exhibitions and creative events and industry events that happen within the photographic industry. A lot are actually located in London and occur throughout the year. So whether it's exhibitions or it might be technical workshops or artist talks, whatever it may be, there's a lot of those happening all the time, and particularly centered around the London circuit of galleries. One of the other aspects is the opportunity to get involved in photographic industry. So many of our students are engaged in getting experience in the industry by working with galleries or working as photographic assistants or in retouching houses or repro houses or whatever it may be. And obviously, being a London-based university, those things are a lot closer to us. In fact, they're on our doorstep. We're obviously just on the north side of the Northern Line, so we can just jump on the Northern Line and zip into town, and all our students have that access very close at hand. One of the other aspects is the BA photography course has its own sort of network of industry links with people that we've grown to know over the years that the course has been running. So we've set up several links with various labs around London, people working in the photographic industry that do come in to meet our students and talk to them about their experiences and work with them, but also give our students feedback on their own work that they're producing on the course. So that's an amazing sort of opportunity for our students. The other thing is, of course, making work in London is a particularly fantastic opportunity. London itself, offers such a broad raft of variety and range of subject matters, locations for shooting, studios to potentially work in, but all of that is really really amazing if you think about the opportunities that are available to as a global city. All of these things are available to you to be able to investigate and work with, for photographic projects. So that's one of the things that we really benefit from, is that our students are able to sort of have access to these types of opportunities. And then, of course, London as a place is, as again, being a global city, it has such a range of restaurants and bars, music, other things. So just in terms of a cultural hub, it really does develop our students in many ways, not only their studentship and their ability as photographers, but as people. The experience of studying in London is quite an amazing and wonderful opportunity. So that's just the first slide there.
Thank you, Phil. I should have said that Phil Pleasance is program leader for photography, and you're now going to meet Alison Tanner, who's senior lecturer in photography and also one of the year tutors. So she in particular looks after the first year kind of program. So Alison, are you going to tell us a bit more about how things are typically structured?
Hello, everyone. So this is just a slide to sort of show the structure of the year one plan, which is what you would do when you first join the course. And it's a 24-week, two 12-week terms that run for 24 weeks. And we run on a full-time basis, Monday to Friday. And within that framework, we run 3 projects per week. So you would be working on a 7-week project, running concurrently, 3 lots of 7 weeks. And in that first project, you'd work on a urban environment project, you'd work on a documentary style behind the scenes project, and a fashion editorial project. So for designing a fashion shoot for an editorial magazine, for example. So those are much longer projects that allow you to really get into detail with each of the narratives, the stories behind them. And one of the examples I'm going to show you in a few slides time is of some of the work that the first years did for their portrait or documentary project that we first start doing, and then how that ties in with their culture and context module, which comes later on in the week. So within the structure, you have a couple of days of independent study, and that's obviously to allow you the chance to make the work, because you need to be able to go out, to photograph, to make your shoots for the tutorial sessions. And then the second practical module that we run is a block of 4 6-week sessions. So within those sessions, they are essentially the technical projects. So they give you an opportunity to understand the workings of the colour and black and white dark rooms, the studios and the lighting techniques that are available there, and a digital Photoshop retouching project as well. So they run concurrently as well. So you'd be working on those 2 practice projects simultaneously. And then again, another day for you to be able to use to make the work that you need to produce. And it's worth pointing out that within that time, you have access to the library and the photographic facilities. And we also have introduced access to Creative Cloud this year. So every student will have access to Creative Cloud to be able to work on Photoshop retouching techniques. And then on the schedule as we have it on the Friday, Culture and Context module, which Anne will be able to describe a little bit more about, is working more on the theory and looking at your practice in relation to theory of your own work. And the first year students last year created a magazine which allowed to bridge the 2 modules together. And then the library and the facilities that are open are available 24/7, so you can access them whenever you need them. And I think the next slide goes on to the Polaris.
Yeah. So Phil's going to just tell us a little bit about this particular platform that we use in BA Photography at Middlesex.
Yeah, so this is just a precursor really to the next series of slides, because again I think this is really about something that distinguishes studying photography at Middlesex. Is quite a particular and unique platform that we use for our learning environment, and it's called Polaris. Essentially, all students will have access to this throughout the whole program. But what it does is it's a digital learning environment that students can access a whole array of course related information. And what makes it so unique is that it's independent. It's for BA Photography as a particular program. So it's designed very specifically in that way. And so you can see on the list of things there that it contains. So it has a digital sketchbook that each student will have a digital sketchbook for each project that they engage with on the programme. They also have a whole year schedule, which is really important because essentially we plan the whole year from front all the way through to the end of the academic year, and all of those sessions are scheduled very carefully, so we don't have any crossover with rooms or it's to make sure that the facilities are used in the best way possible as well. But essentially everything is laid out for the students in a very constructed and carefully planned way. On Polaris, it also houses all of the teaching materials, so we have project briefs, handouts, and any supporting materials for any of the projects. So students can always go back. It's a sort of a reference library, if you like, of material that students can then sort of go back and reread any elements of the project brief or any sort of supporting material that we may have given out with a particular project. On there, it also houses all of the feedback and grades for all of the students. It also archives all of the projects, so you're again able to look back at previous projects and sort of look at how you were assessed and where you can improve in terms of your studentship and practice. On there is, of course, other sort of information, things like attendance. It also has a messaging system built in as well, where you're able to message other students, but also the staff. So essentially, it's an amazing platform, which has all of this information sort of bundled into one place, which is really useful for all of our students to be sort of on top of their time management and be sort of organised in terms of their studying.
It's also meant that we had a very smooth transition to online teaching once we went into lockdown. So we it was actually very smooth because all of the students' work is still accessible. We're all very much used to working in this online way. So the transition hasn't been problematic for people at all over the last couple of months. So that's really helped, and it's something that we can build on more as we go forward. We've just momentarily lost Alison, but I think, or not. Alison, are you there? Yeah, I can't see Alison.
Disappeared very briefly.
Yeah, I think she's just gone offline. So Bill, do you want to talk a little bit more about this project? So this was an example of one of the first year projects, wasn't it? Do you want to kick us off? Yeah.
So we wanted to illustrate again what Polaris does, but also illustrate a project within year one and how our students engage with particular projects. So we picked out this urban environment project, and essentially the project brief is for students to engage with London and photograph it, to build a series of photographs that they can then incorporate any style that they want, really. So students really have sort of a very open brief in that sense. So we don't restrict anything within this particular project. And in this particular case, this student was working in East 17. You can see in the top left there, the area of Walthamstow. So this particular student was tasked with the job of going into Walthamstow and really sort of walking and experiencing that location or that particular postcode, and then developing a photographic response to that particular area using any sort of photographic approach that they think would benefit their ideas for working there. So I think we've got Alison back here. Oh, she's got a mute on.
Yeah, hi Alison. Do you want to add anything to that, Alison? We can move on to the next slide if you like.
I lost a bit of internet signal then.
Yeah.
No, that's the same. This is a really great example of showing how one student would carry out a project from being given their postcode to seeing it through with research and analysis on different photographers that relate to the project. So it's like a sketchbook online, effectively. Yeah. So if you want to move on to the next slide.
Yeah.
This is showing parts of the process of that. So we actually went on a walk with the students as a sort of a recce, almost like a field trip, to establish how you would cover an area, how you would go out and actually document a particular postcode. Within that, we tied that in with a visit from our university campus to the Moda building, and that Museum of Design and Advertising allowed us to go and pay a visit to them and look at the work that they have on display there, the archives that they have of magazines, amazing range of magazines. And we were able to sort of tie that in and bridge that with the culture and context module, which Anne will probably talk to you about, and enabling them to see how you carry out a journey going from one part of a postcode to another. So throughout that trip, we encountered parks and walk bridges and urban regenerated areas ripe for development. So we got to see a whole array of different areas within that walk, which enabled the students to then go and carry out their own postcode tour themselves.
Yeah, so it's like a really important and kind of preparation step, isn't it, on the way to students responding to their briefs.
Yeah.
Back at Middlesex, we have this particular collection. So the Moda, so that Alison referred to the Museum of Design and Architecture, and they have their premises are just slightly, they're only about a 10-minute walk away from the main campus, and they have a fantastic collection of material that as students you can research, you can use and access and work with, and they have a curator there who facilitates really interesting workshops with students. So we're able to build that into the curriculum so that we're actually kind of looking at photographic examples, so historic images, and also looking at a whole collection of design related material, whether that's magazines or print or various different elements. So that's a kind of really interesting addition that we're able to kind of take advantage of in our work. So it's just a bit more here on the studio side. And
this is just,
do you want to add to that, Alison?
This is just bringing together the project. So we go through lots of tutorials. So the students have group tutorials or one-to-one tutorials looking at their final images. And then we build towards a final set of images. So you can see the student was busily printing in the digital darkroom, working out her layout for her final images. And then the following slide shows a selection of the final images that the students put together. This is a few different students from their own postcode selection of how they responded to that particular postcode. So some people took a landscape approach, an urban environment approach, some portraiture, and they all had their own individual ways of presenting the work. And that tied in really well with when they came to designing the magazine.
Yeah, and this works really nicely as a project, doesn't it? Because with everybody kind of randomly being allocated postcodes, it means that people are not working in an area that they know already. They're actually kind of out of their comfort zone a little bit, and they're really looking at an area as a detached observer, as an outsider, really. So it's really interesting then when you see all of the work together, isn't it? And what people have brought back from these remote areas all over London. So it's quite nice as a way of kind of just tapping into a tiny bit to the richness that London has to offer in terms of, a place Absolutely. To make work and to think about things, to think about ideas and to think about history and culture. So that kind of
back to those areas, having experienced them, that one project, it sparks off another idea, or they may want to go deeper into that particular area. So it's often quite good to have a wide open opportunity to go and look at a part of London they may not have experienced before.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks.
Yeah.
Well, I think that particular project was it was one of the first of that academic year, and I think the thing about that is that it allowed our new students in the first year to really express themselves and be creative without over worrying about technique. It was really about just the way that they saw the world and engaged with the world photographically. And so,
Mm.
you know, it was the freedom really that is the creativity of that project, you know, for them to then go and really experience and explore a place, as Anne says, you know, to sort of kind of get into the fabric of London and find out more about it. And that was really interesting, the trip to Moda that we undertook there, because we, you know, the curators of the collection there showed us lots of examples of old work or images in magazines from, you know, several decades before. And it was really amazing because obviously our students were sort of experiencing London now and looking through all of that archive and sort of kind of thinking about the transition that's happened over in the sort of intervening years. Really quite amazing.
Yeah, so just from the structure that Alison showed you at the beginning, so it's about a quarter of the degree programme is what we refer to broadly as the contextual studies element. So that's where we're kind of homing in on ideas about photography. So we're looking at things that people have written about photography. So looking at academics and how they've written about particular themes that come up in photography, or particular photographers. And we're also looking at curatorial material that might come out of museums and galleries. So we're looking at all those kind of debates that are out there in the wider world about visual images and visual culture. So on the you know, at the moment it's been on a Friday where we've had that module, and it runs as a lecture and a seminar series. So we're able to kind of introduce different themes and various readings. So you'd have some academic text to read about that idea. And that also then feeds back into the work that you're making. So in this case, with the urban environment project, then one of the themes that we had on the module was looking at the street as a place, and looking at how historians have written about the street, and looking at how design and urban planning has all kind of been influenced by visual culture, and how you know, how that has kind of affected and shaped the debate. So while you're kind of making work and reacting to London as it is now, you've also got the influence of texts from all over the world, really, in terms of how the street is understood and thought about. So that kind of feeds back into the work that you're making. And yeah, as Alison mentioned, one of the outcomes of this module is to produce a magazine. So that was one of the themes that people picked up on, was the urban environment. And so there you have the all the creative freedom to produce a magazine using any kind of imagery or layout or design that helps you communicate your message. And it's a form of integrating your visual work and visual work of others along with writing. So here it would be a kind of a slightly looser version of academic writing. So it still kind of has to be well informed, and you need to research using academic literature, but the style of writing is a bit more accessible than a formal essay might be. So this has worked really well as an initial project, and it's great again to see the range of things that people come up with. So these are just two examples of styles that people have taken up in the work that they've made. And again, one of the lectures that we deal with works very directly with the material from the Museum of Domestic Design and Architecture. And we had a great session this year because the curator brought some images of markets, so different London markets that had been photographed and written about, and these provided a really good starting point for thinking about different locations within London and how that might become reflected through the markets and the people that inhabit and frequent those markets, whether it's the traders or the people wandering through buying stuff. So again, there's a kind of historical collection that was really useful to work with. So we kind of try to plan things so that everything feeds in to ultimately to the work that you're making. And so you're kind of very well informed, critical kind of practitioners. So yeah, they're quite exciting projects and quite dynamic, and there's a lot of freedom to work along with your, to follow your own interests within these broad themes.
And also just to say that we run in-design workshops, so the students are able to sort of work out how they lay out their magazine in terms of document spreads, and so they get to see the way that photography then interacts with text, and that's
exactly
as well.
Yeah, so you're learning skills alongside thinking conceptually about your own ideas and projects. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we could talk a little bit about the photographic facilities, which are outstanding, aren't they, Phil?
They are incredible. Yeah, we're I mean, just extremely lucky. Obviously, the campus at Hemden, the Grove building that houses art and design is I don't know now. It must be 5 years old, maybe
Mm-hmm.
6. I'm not sure.
Maybe a bit more, yeah.
But very, very, very modern. And in terms of the equipment that the students have access to for BA photography, I mean, it is second to none in many ways. I mean, as you can see there from some of the images, it's an extremely modern environment that's been very carefully planned and laid out and prepared with some of the best equipment that we could lay our hands on, really. So starting in the top left there is the digital suite. Essentially, that's just one. In that image there, you can only see one half of the room, because in the blinds sort of in the image there, there's 2 there. That's actually another room that's the teaching facility for digital production. So essentially, we have a very large space filled with really high-end Macintosh computers and high-end color-calibrated screens, Wacom tablets, all designed, specifically for high-end sort of digital imaging and retouching. We also have a range of Hasselblad and FlexTight scanners, which are some of the best on the market, virtual drum scanners, which are amazing, from scanning everything from 5x4 to 35mm negative, black and white and color, or color transparency. That facility is actually managed by 2 technicians as well. So we have technicians on hand to help students and provide support with any questions, but also support with any sort of issues that they're having with the computer, or any of the technical side of running that facility. We have a whole range of Epson color printers as well, running from A4 all the way through to B0. So these huge roll printers where we can print a variety of different media on there. The top right image there is a finishing area in the same room. So essentially, that's an area where prints can be cut to size and mounted if need be. There's also bookbinding facilities there. A lot of our students are interested in sequencing work and presenting in books and zines. So we have the facilities there to be able to do that. The bottom right image is our black and white darkroom. So we have a black and white analog darkroom and a color analog darkroom. We're one of the very few universities in the country to retain those. A lot of the universities are actually sort of removing those to make way for more digital production. However, we've always felt that it's really important to retain those areas. Both analog areas are some of the most popular areas that we run on the BA course, and the skills that you can learn in there really are the basis of sort of understanding photography in a really, really sort of how do you describe that? I think it's like understanding the mechanics, if you like, of what's going on under the bonnet of a car. The skills that you learn in controlling light and exposing negative, but also producing a print, really sort of enable you to become a better digital practitioner. And in the studios, the bottom left image, we've got 4 main studio areas, which again are probably some of the best photographic facilities that any of the universities in the country have. I think they really are quite amazing. They're all kitted out with ProPhoto lighting kits on high glide systems, so we don't have too many stands around. But it's a very sort of modern, high-end studio facility. So we have sort of lots of different coloramas. We have a green room for models to change in. We're able to shoot digital in there as well. So we have all of the Power Max in there, so students can shoot with the most current digital backs and be able to shoot tethered to the computers there, so they can actually, you know, visibly see what they're doing as they're shooting and modify their shoots as they go. So yeah, just as an overview, it's quite incredible, and we're really sort of lucky to have those facilities, but very proud to have them at the same time.
So kind of skills are introduced cumulatively, aren't they? So that over the course of the 3 years, then you'll be building up your skills and expertise and everything that's available and on offer.
Yeah, absolutely. So all of those key skills are woven into all of our projects. So you don't do all of them all of the time, of course. They're sort of dispersed between lots of different projects, and they're woven in. So in some of the projects that Alison described, you know, you'll be sort of working with maybe an analog sort of based project, and you'll obviously be learning all of the relevant sort of skills and crafts that are involved in that. Or say in the digital, the Urban Environment magazine that you described, you know, the digital production of using InDesign is taught in that. You know, so that's the type of, or the way in which we sort of weave those skills into all of these projects, you know. And that happens throughout the whole program. That's not just in year one, that's year 1, 2 and 3.
Yeah, great. Do you want to tell us a bit about this, Alison?
So this is just to show a little bit about our social media. So we have MDX Photo as our Instagram page, so everyone's welcome to follow us on Instagram, and that shows things that we are doing all the time. There'll be talks or events that we've attended, competitions that students have entered and been successful at. So that allows us to see as we're kind of feeding information into that regularly. As well as that, our recent third years, our current graduates, have put together a project of their own. This is their virtual exhibition that's going to be online in June. I'm sure we'll send you the details out for that. And the show is called Lucid. And they, as a group, a curatorial group, they came up with the title of the exhibition. They've got various people taking different roles within that. And one of the things that happened is, whilst we were having a virtual darkroom conversation between the students, they discovered that they were having lots of conversations with each other about their individual pieces of work, and they felt that it really helped to kind of talk to each other about their final projects. So the students actually came up with the idea of having a live conversation on a Friday night. So they call it Lucid Conversations, and you can join it every Friday at 6:30, and you'll see 2 of the third years talking to each other about their individual work and answering questions on the projects and how they came to those ideas, how they generated the images, how they laid them out, came up with the decision, the editing, the final image decisions, any processes that they used, techniques, whether they chose analog photography using black and white film or digital techniques. And that's a really great way of them being able to sort of vocalize how they went through this entire process from essentially year 1 right the way through to year 3 of learning how to build a final body of work that they now have for their final projects, their professional portfolios, and will be on show in the Lucid exhibition in June. So they've been very much active and really, I think, brilliantly proactive during this time as well, of keeping working consistently and finding new ways to get their work out into a wider audience.
Yeah, that's great. And the university's also going to have a portfolio, aren't they, for all the graduating students. So as well as the online exhibition, then there will be a kind of more formal, I suppose, portfolio record of students' work. So we could just talk a little bit then about some of the other ways in which our course has been particularly recognised. Do you want to shall I hand over to you, Phil?
Yeah. Well, there's lots. So there's probably too many to mention, really. But
too much for me. Yeah.
I mean, it's the course has grown over. I think it's been running maybe 13. I don't know how many years now, but quite a few. But over the years, students have been sort of going out into the world and have been very successful. Just some of the list here are people that are, either sort of receiving awards as they graduate, or some, become, they sort of win awards, or sort of go on to be successful in their own right. And, after a few years of being out as a Middlesex graduate. And there's some amazing work being produced by Middlesex graduates in a vast variety of places. But it's on the right hand side there, that list there sort of alludes to the fact that it's not necessarily about just becoming a photographer. Many of our students do, of course, but many students go into lots of different areas of photographic industry, or in terms of being employable. A lot of the skills that they learn through studying BA photography are transferable, and they're able to then sort of work in lots of different areas of any given industry. So, but in terms of individual successes, I don't know if I start at the top here. So the Brighton Biennale, that was Teresa Serenova. She graduated, I think, 3 years ago, or maybe longer, 4 years ago. Subsequently went on to study her master's degree at the Royal College of Art, and then produced a body of work which was about Brexit, and she produced a sequence of books, which she was then she won a book award, but she was also selected to be one of the main exhibitors for the Brighton Biennale, which was on the theme of Brexit. And her work was part of a joint exhibition. But that's an amazing accolade for a very young artist that had only graduated from her BA course, not that many years beforehand. But we've got lots of students that are being recognised in exhibitions, but being published, being part of national exhibitions. So we've had a whole series of female photographers involved in the women's photography at the National Portrait Gallery, which I think was last year. Is that right, Alison?
Yes, yeah, 100 women.
Yeah.
Photographed the MPs and 100 members of Parliament who are female. One photographer per member of Parliament, and I think we had about 6 of our final students, and yes, a couple of members of staff who had their portraits exhibited in that. And the other thing is the Portrait of Britain as well, to point out. We've had, for the last few years, a number of students have been involved in the Portrait of Britain competition, and they've had their work featured in the book and the final exhibition. So we really push for competitions, encourage students to enter competitions. We have our own little sort of mini competition at Middlesex called MDX PPP, which is the Middlesex Photographic Portrait Prize, and we as tutors and technicians, we select from about 150 submissions, and we whittle them down to about 30 of the best portraits, and then we exhibit them in the atrium of the university, and then choose a selection of around 10 that we submit to the Taylor Wessing Portrait Prize, which is another great competition to enter. We've had a number, I think, virtually every year out of about 5 or 6 years, we've had have our students or staff shortlisted for the Taylor Wessing. So we really push and encourage students to actively take part in competitions as well. And the other thing I think is work experience. I don't know whether we talked about that earlier, that the students carry out a work placement as part of the 3rd year. up to 5 days in any throughout the year. They can take part in across the final year, and they need to look for somebody that they would ideally like to work for or work towards, whether that might be working as a studio assistant or working assisting a photographer, or working within a gallery, a magazine or another editorial publication, working in retouching. So all of our third year students carry out a work placement that often leads towards them going into work afterwards. So we've had quite a few students that have then subsequently gone on to work for the photographic studio that they did their work placement in, or the gallery, or a magazine that they worked on the shop floor of, so to speak. And that's been quite a successful addition as well to the third year as part of our toolkit model.
And we try to encourage people, don't we, to go to choose an area of work that is relevant to the kind of work that they're making and to the direction that they want to be headed in the future. So it does mean that people are doing a really wide range of things.
One of the things, just to elaborate on some of the awards, I mean, because we have lots of students winning individual awards or going on to work individually for, you know, a renowned studio or assisting another photographer, wherever it may be. But the course has been recognised itself. You know, it's an award-winning course in terms of doing very well at the Free Range Awards over the last 4 or 5 years. BA Photography at Middlesex has been recognised on, I think, 3 out of the 4 years that we've been involved in Free Range as one of the best photography programs in the country, and I think twice has won the Best in Show university at the Free Range Photography Week 1. We've also had 2 students win the Best in Individual Show or Individual Student Exhibition, which they've then gone on to win quite a prestigious sort of award of a solo exhibition and a mentorship over a period of year while they prepare more work or new work to exhibit at a solo show. They also have a bursary of money linked in with Metro Imaging, where they're able to get sort of technical assistance and help with producing new work. So, you know, both on an individual student level and as a program, you know, Middlesex University has built a reputation that really does precede it now. We've always had very, very positive feedback from industry panels that come in to see our student work at exhibitions or meet our students and talk to them about their work. And everybody's always very sort of positive and you know, thinks that, you know, Middlesex is you know, producing a really high caliber of work. You know, which is being recognised, which is amazing.
Being London based as well is that we can have access to all those things, and it's very evident that the students can go into London to use the dark rooms, the labs that they may wish to use to source exhibitions. It's very easy to go and see one of the latest exhibitions that might be on show in central London. Doing work experience has enabled them to sort of run that throughout the year, not just in one sort of particular chunk of time, that they can go and work with a photographer they particularly want to work with when that photographer is available, or working in a studio or magazine or what have you. So I think that access to London has been pretty vital for a lot of those students. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just kind of conscious of time. Are we okay with time? Do we want to open it up for any questions, or are there any?
A few more people joined us if they want to ask any questions. We've got a chat there if they wanted to type.
I think we can hear people. I don't know if maybe the mute's on at the moment.
No, everyone has access to speak, so if you'd like to ask a question, feel free to do so, or you can put it in the Q&A.
Yeah, up to you. Somebody's got some very nice bird song that I can hear coming through. Is it you?
Oh,
is it from you, Alison? Is it you, Chris?
Yeah.
It's really nice.
I've just got a van reversing noise,
Oh.
which isn't so nice as birdsong, but
Yeah.
I think you guys are so comprehensive that we don't have any questions, but yeah, I thought that was really great, and thank you so much for that. Is there, if these guys do have any questions, is there a way they can contact you?
Yeah, of course. On the Middlesex website, the course pages has the staff listed there. I'm not sure if the contact details are there for everybody, but I certainly have a web address on there or an email address. I think Michael does as well. So anybody that would like to ask any further questions or have any further information or a discussion, then you know, more than welcome to get in touch by emailing in and just.
Can you pass those email addresses on, Chris?
Yeah.
Say that again, sorry, Anne.
Could you pass those email addresses on in case they want to get in touch?
Of course, yeah. We'll be sending up follow-up emails, so yeah, we can include that.
That'd be great.
Yeah, that's great. And if you have any questions around finance or accommodation or anything like that, you could always go onto our website and use the chat function where you'll be able to talk to someone and get some answers. So thanks very much, guys. That was great. And yeah, hopefully see you all soon.
Thank you, Chris.
thank you.
Welcome, Chris.
Thank you, everyone, for attending and for tuning in.